Okay, so I'm going to be talking about garbage. Garbage. What could you do with the world's garbage? How could you start taking it down? And how could you understand how the garbage that you produce could be taken away to start understanding that, yeah, the day will come when even a landfill won't be able to be filled up anymore because it'll be filled up. Yeah. So, an example of that, I watched a video on basically the world's biggest landfill outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. And the guy says, yeah, basically around about 2051, right, the year 2051, being, like 25 years from now, there's going to be nowhere else to put the garbage here, yeah, because they understand what the area is that they're working with. They understand how much garbage gets there, which is quite a bit every day, and eventually when it'll be filled up and they won't be able to put garbage there anymore, right? So what do you do? What do you do? So right now, some people do something called incineration. Incineration. And when you incinerate garbage, you put the garbage into kind of like a facility, and within that facility, when it's being incinerated, it's not like as hot as a fire. It's 2,000, 3,000 degrees Celsius, kind of, right? And the idea behind that is, if you throw something into a fire, let's say like garbage, you'll see some smoke rise up. And, it's not just like white smoke, sometimes it's kind of like a green or kind of black kind of smoke, and that's toxic smoke, yeah, going up into the air. Yeah. And then in the incineration facility, when you have garbage being put in there, when it just gets incinerated with that extremely high heat, you don't really get any smoke at all because it's just such a high heat. It just turns into ash. Yeah. And when you're working with garbage that would be something like heavy metals or plastic or more like metals really, the heat needs to be higher so that it just still is actually incinerated. Yeah. And the problem that would exist though is energy is not really something that is in massive abundance. We use it for many things that we need to be able to do in our daily lives in order to function the way that we are functioning. Which means diverting a bunch of energy into an incineration factory that requires a lot of energy is not exactly practical when we don't really have an excess of surplus energy to commit towards incineration factories to be incinerating our garbage. They obviously do exist. People do have incineration factories, but you can ask them. Yeah, it's a lot of energy to do that. But at the same time, having garbage just pile up over time, eventually, when the garbage man comes up and he's like, "Yeah, the landfill's filled up," and then people are putting garbage in the garbage containers, and then if all you do is light them on fire, uh, then you're basically, yeah, you'll be burning it, the garbage, but you'll have a lower heat as opposed to an incineration factory, and so much toxic smoke would be going up into the air. You would even think that a wildfire would be more pleasurable. Yeah. So, anyways, what do you do? What do you do? Because if we don't have that energy, how could we have the means of that energy? And how could we have incineration factories that would be located in an area where the space is ideal in terms of there not being much going on there, but a lot of sun, light, yeah, and also a lot of just space to set this stuff up. That is space that is not being used for anything else, like your home. Yeah. So I'm sure we're all familiar with the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert. And why would the Sahara Desert be a good location for an incineration factory? Well, in the Sahara Desert, you kind of got some cactuses, but you don't have big trees that would be looming over, casting a shadow to not have as much sun. Where is he going? Yeah, good question. Well, the thing is if you want to produce more electricity and more power to power something like an incineration factory, we only have so many fossil fuels. But what you could do is you could do solar panels. But why would you not put them outside? Outside. Okay, so for an example, even in Texas, they set up a bunch of solar farms outside, and they had a hailstorm, and then they were looking at a bunch of solar panels that were like, oh, broken. Yeah, and it's not like you did the wrong thing. How could we do it better? And if you've ever been to the Palace of Versailles in France, there's the Hall of Mirrors. It was, something that was constructed way back in the day by the kings of France, like Louis. And in the Hall of Mirrors, what happens is the mirrors are set up, inside the palace. And what happens is sunlight comes in. And as the sunlight comes in, it's reflected off of all of these mirrors. And that's why it's called like the Hall of Mirrors. It's like the Hall of Light. It's kind of like, I don't know, walking through light, right? But what can we learn from this besides it, just being maybe an aesthetic? Well, the mirror would reflect the sunlight that would reflect to another mirror that would reflect to another mirror, and you're amplifying the amount of light from the original source to be exponentially more. Yeah. And so this is why when you set up solar panels inside as opposed to outside, you can get more. Especially when you have like a sunroof, right? And would glass be the most ideal thing to do? Well, it could be. It depends on where it is. But even something like fiberglass would also be more robust and more durable, and it would still let light through. But glass could work too. So let's say you set this up, and let's just say you've got like your facility in a Sahara Desert. Here it is again. Use your imagination. Here's the facility. Okay, and if on the top, it's all like a sunroof, right, that lets the sun in. Okay, then on the interior of this facility, you have a bunch of mirrors. And all these mirrors are reflecting all the light, and it's going onto solar panels. And do your research. You can get more than just 100% of power being generated into a solar panel when you can understand how to reflect light and amplify beyond 100% of what a solar power panel is actually able to absorb and produce into electricity. So then, when you combine the fact that you can have, like at the Hall of Mirrors in the Palace of Versailles, reflecting light, a sunroof, and if it's in the Sahara Desert, right, there's no real trees, and there's also an even dispersion of light. And why? Because being closer to the equator, the sun, takes a very typical course all day, every day, all around the year. Whereas when you go extremely up north, they can tell you, yeah, we have like sun like all day, every day for kind of more like 6 months. And then the other 6 months, it's like there's no sun at all. Yeah. That's why the further you go up north, the further you go south, the less it makes sense to kind of just set up the solar panel because it's not really doing anything for you for half of the year now, is it? No, no. But the Sahara Desert being right around the equator, yeah, every day gonna get some sun. Okay, so every day, you're getting, yeah, sunlight. Okay, so then you realize, well, what's going on in the Sahara Desert? Well, there's scorpions. Okay, yeah, there's scorpions, right? But does anybody live there? No, right? And yeah, it's not like you're gonna be ruining the scorpion's home with some incineration factories and some solar panel facilities set up to power these incineration factories. Yeah. And the other nice thing about the solar panel on the inside, right, is it's not exposed to the elements on the outside. So really, basically, the maintenance becomes you got to change the battery every 50 years. Yeah. But what would be the other thing you would have to do is you'd have to understand, well, we're amplifying, reflecting all this light all the time. It's probably going to get a little hot in there. It is. Yeah. But when you're amplifying the amount of light that goes onto these solar panels, you can then use air conditioning within these facilities. And really, you don't even need to keep the lights on in these facilities. It's not like you need to have lights. I mean, it doesn't really matter. But you need to keep it at a kind of room temperature. Because if all the mirrors and all the solar panels in there started getting too hot, then you've got another problem. Yeah, right. Because all that light is kind of like the light that goes through the magnifying glass. Yeah, it kind of gets hot. Kind of gets hot, right? And so, but what you can do is, you can imagine a facility that would have kind of like a lot of corners, right, and stuff, and a lot you would be able to understand how to have the mirrors that would all be reflecting onto these solar panels. And you could have, for example, you could have all the mirrors kind of set up on, like, let's say, if it's a cube, let's just say it's a cube, because it's easy, right? If I had all the mirrors set up here and here, okay, and they were kind of reflecting all back and forth, and eventually that light was then all going to these two sides, okay, of the cube structure, the facility that you make where the solar panels would be, right? Then the light would be going like this between the mirrors, and then going on solar panels this side, or the other way to the solar panels on the other side. Yeah. Or you could literally just have the mirrors, okay, and let's just say these sides are mirrors, this side is a mirror, and then on this side is all the solar panels. Then you would be turning the mirrors, okay, like this kind of. So they're going like this, reflecting, 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 then to these mirrors on this side, okay? But then you have to understand how to reflect them down to maybe to a slightly lower level. Maybe you got some more mirrors on the bottom, and then it's all reflecting back. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of angles. It's just a matter of angles. Yeah. And so really, once you understand how you have an angle like 1 degree, that eventually, is reflected with all these other angles, and it ends up on a solar panel, you could be producing probably even up to like 1,000% more energy onto a solar panel, as opposed to when it's just on your roof. You never really go past about 75-80% of the sunlight actually being absorbed by that solar panel. Yeah, so I guess that's why Kennedy's idea to put a solar panel on every American roof was not a good idea. No, yeah, it wasn't. It's a good thing it got kiboshed. But anyways, so when you have, it's the in the Sahara Desert, you got your facility, okay? You've got your mirrors inside of there. You've got your air conditioning, because it's gonna get hot. So you have to understand how hot is it gonna get. How much do we have to cool it down so that things not melting in there. And then they're all going onto the solar panels with a tons of reflections of the light in order to get a lot more than just 100% of what the solar panel can actually absorb. And do the research for yourself. Solar panels can go past 100%. They can. Yeah. Anyways, so then what happens is you realize, okay, we have the means to build all this kind of stuff, and then when we have these solar panels that are getting a lot more energy than just a solar panel on your roof or something, then you're getting a lot of energy that we don't have right now. And when that energy can be diverted into not just the air conditioning, because obviously you would have a surplus after that, it can go into generators, and then what do you know? Yeah, you can power up these incineration facilities that are doing about 3,000 degrees in order to incinerate garbage. So then everybody's got garbage all around the world, and this is also why the Sahara Desert becomes another good location. Okay, because if you're in India and you've got garbage, you can go through the Indian Ocean. Okay, you can go through the Strait and then through up the Suez Canal to bring the garbage there. And let's say you're in China, same thing. You're just kind of going down through the Pacific, through the Indian Ocean. You're shipping it there, right? Yep. Let's say you're, relatively close by in Israel. Well, it's a pretty short trip, pretty short trip. But let's say you're in Spain. You're in Spain. You go through the Mediterranean, and then you have another port of unloading that would be kind of, on the north, well, it'd be the south of the Mediterranean Sea, but northern Africa where there's the Sahara Desert, and then you could build a railroad line to go down there, okay? So you gotta understand, you're either putting these things, the garbage, you're compacting the garbage. You want to compact the garbage. You do, yeah. You want to compact it because you want to make it efficient. It's not like you're just bringing loose garbage down. That wouldn't be a good idea. So yeah, you compact it. You compact it. The compactor. If you don't know what a compactor is, it basically just takes garbage and squishes it down. Yeah, so it's all kind of in a concentrated form. Okay. Now the thing is though, is when it's all kind of, the garbage is all kind of squished together, it actually is harder to incinerate. Yeah. And what could you do maybe prior to doing these kinds of things? You don't have to, as long as your incineration factories, actually hot enough, it wouldn't really matter. But what you can also do that would, most likely, yes, it would require less energy in order to break down the garbage before you incinerate it is to freeze it. Okay, and I'm just gonna use an example. If you ever watch like Terminator 2, what happens when you see the T-1000 become frozen, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger shoots him down with a shotgun afterwards, right? The guy is like a liquid nanogel, right, at first, right, and every time Schwarzenegger um, shotguns the guy, it just kind of goes through him and then kind of goes back together. But then they figure out how we're gonna freeze this T-1000 guy, and he all gets frozen. And then when he gets shotgunned, he breaks up into little bits and pieces. Now, it's not about the movie and the entertainment value. It's the fact that when you freeze something, it's easier to break it up into little bits and pieces. Yeah. And what's good about you breaking up garbage as much as possible before you incinerate it, okay? Because when you freeze it, you froze it, and you could keep it frozen, but then it doesn't really go away yet. But the benefit of freezing garbage is you can break it down into little bits and pieces, so it's almost more like a fine dust, and then you can actually compact it even more. Because think about it. Let's say you got like your Lego blocks, and you got all the biggest Lego block pieces, and you're kind of compacting them together. It's not that you should do this; it's just an example. But if you took a sledgehammer and you broke down all those Lego pieces into really small bits and pieces, you'd realize that you could put more pieces together into that compacted cube. Whereas when they weren't broken down, you only got so many Lego pieces, right? So let's say you have like 1,000 Lego pieces. For some reason you want to throw in the garbage, and you can only get 100 down into a compacted cube because they're not broken down. And then you sledgehammer the 1,000 Lego pieces into like a fine kind of bits and pieces of dust, and you can squish them all down into a cube or a little thing that's the same size as what you did as the 100, but because you broke them down, you got all 1,000 in there. Yeah. So yeah, you want to break it down, and that's why some things are really hard to break down. But if you freeze them, the opposite of incineration, yeah, the opposite, when you make them extremely cold, okay, then you have the means to break them down really easily, right? So when you have kind of like a compactor thing, and it's doing things like old vehicles and stuff, it only goes so far. But if you really turn the temperature down for like a bunch of old vehicles, and then you crunch them down, you would really see it turn into a fine dust. And then you'd realize, oh, now we can compact them so much more effectively, because you're exposing all the surface area in order to maximize your potential and to compact it down. Yeah. So then when you realize, okay, well, we could start taking garbage from landfills. Good. You can start breaking them down in the ways that I've described, and then you're either going in trucks, trains, planes. No, that doesn't make much sense. It really doesn't. It's kind of ineffective. But trucks, trains, ships, right? Ships, and basically, everybody in the world. Some people would have to do it for longer, right? It'd be harder. But let's say you're in Seattle, right? Do you go all the way across the Pacific Ocean and then all the way through the Indian Ocean up the Strait and up the Suez Canal? You see, when everybody goes up from the southern part of the Suez Canal, you get a cluster, don't you? Yeah, it's kind of like, oi, yeah, because there's already stuff going on there already. Yeah. But when you also have the northern part of the Sahara Desert, just by the south of the Mediterranean Sea there on the coast, that could be another place where you would unload and then have a rail line from the top there of the north going into the interior where you have these incineration factories. Yeah, and stuff. And then, you could also have like another place where you would have let's say you're in New York and you're shipping it across the Atlantic, and, the Mediterranean's only so big. Yeah, there's already a lot of activity there. So, then you've got another port, okay, that would be in Western Africa, and then you would unload there and would go on like a rail line into, the train, and then that would go to the Sahara Desert inside of these facilities, okay? And, this also would require energy. Yeah, it would. But the point is if you always have more garbage than what you take away, eventually you don't have anywhere to put your garbage, and that's the bigger problem than doing something. Something. Okay, so we're just gonna go with some round figures. Easy math. Okay, they're not the real numbers, but that's not what it's about. It's just about having something easy to work with. Okay, so for some reason, you've got 1 million tons of garbage on the planet. Now, there's a lot more than that, but again, it's not what it's about. It's just about having a number to get an idea. If you got 1 million tons of garbage, okay, and let's just say every day 1,000 tons of garbage gets produced around the world, okay? So you have 1 million tons of garbage, okay, and tomorrow, what do you got? 1,000,000 tons of garbage, because every day 1,000 tons gets produced. But then you realize, okay, if we can start doing this breaking down and stuff and bring it down to these incineration factories and stuff and start incinerating it, then we're taking away. And if we have the means, when 1,000 is being produced every day and we have the million at that time, let's say you're incinerating 5,000 every day. Well, then you're taking negative 4,000 tons every day from the world's garbage that's being incinerated. Okay. Now, what's the other thing about incineration of garbage is it turns into ash. Ash. And, I mean, for example, let's say I'm having a cigarette, and, some ashes going down on the ground towards somebody's garden, their flower bed, okay? And it just lands in the soil or something. And they're like, hey, you're polluting. And I would say, no, I'm fertilizing your soil. And, we don't really need to get into too much of the science of it, but you can ask a farmer that knows ash is fertilizer. And how else do we know? Okay, when a volcano erupts, okay, the lava comes down. And then what happens to it after it cools down? You get the ash. Yeah, the lava ash. Yeah. And what happens when you grow the lemon tree out of what came down from the volcano, being the lava that fertilized the soil? Yeah, you get a really nice abundant lemon tree. Yeah. Okay, so that's why when you incinerate the garbage, you actually create fertilizer. Okay, but is the fertilizer, would it be good for the farmers and the gardens? Yeah, it would. But what else would it be good for? Okay, when it comes to a desert, like the Sahara Desert, or really any desert, really, they slowly expand, expand. And let's think about this over time. When these deserts are slowly expanding, but never stop expanding, then the entire world would be desert eventually. Pretty much. Okay, pretty much, right? It's like, let's say you're in Australia. Australia's a good example, okay? And it's like 200 years from now, where the desert inside of the interior of Australia keeps expanding, and then even on the coast, it's a beach, but all the way up from the interior, all the way is the sand, right? Yeah, and then who's living in Australia then? Doesn't sound very desirable. Yeah. So, anyways, it's not like deserts are expanding at the speed of light, but they expand. And so, what is this fertilizer also good for? What is it also good for? Well, if ash is like the fertilizer for the farmer's fields to help his crops grow, then fertilizer would also be the means that you could place this ash on the exterior of where the desert is. Thus, you would be fertilizing where the desert would be growing, and instead of it growing, it would shrink. Yeah. Now, do I know this like 100% for certain? No. But I do know that a desert is very unfertilized. There's like not much nutrients there, and that's kind of why it is the way that it is. So it only makes sense that if something would be fertilizer that would be adding nutrients that would be on the exterior of a desert, well, it only makes sense then that that fertilizer from the incineration factories that would be ash being placed on the exterior of the desert, it wouldn't keep expanding. Yeah, I don't actually know this for sure, but I do know, it makes sense. Yeah, because what is desert is, basically land that is got no nutrients, not much fertilizer. You know what I mean? It's malnourished. It's malnourished. So when you nourish the exterior of the deserts where they would be expanding, theoretically, you would think. I don't actually know 100%. I'm just being honest, but it does make sense that then you would have soil there instead of a desert that just keeps expanding. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, that's kind of how I, obviously I'm just kind of summarizing all this. It's just, the spark to ignite the fire for the discussion on how you guys could do it. But again, yeah, when you run the numbers, right, you do all the math, you guys already have all this kind of technology. You can set all these kinds of things up. And what would be the other good thing about it is you guys would all cooperate on something. Yeah, you guys would all cooperate on because you all don't want your garbage, but you know you're gonna keep making it, and you gotta do something with it eventually. So you guys could all shake hands and say, "Geez, we could all pitch in on this project together." And we could all have the means to effectively, start taking the garbage down. And a lot of people, no offense, they like to talk about how like CO2 emissions are the problem for the earth and stuff like that. I'll tell you what the problem is. It's just the garbage. Yeah, look up the carbon oxygen cycle. When there is more carbon introduced into the atmosphere, it's more food for plants. That's their building block. Yeah. So the real problem that the plants wouldn't be growing is not the CO2 emissions. The problem is the garbage, the pollution. Yeah. And that's the other thing, though. If all you do is just burn your garbage outside in your little campfire or bonfire in the back, you're making a lot of pollution even when you're burning it down. Just look at all the smoke that's going up in the air. It don't look pretty. And yeah, there are two things that are required for us to live, and it's not just water; it's air that we breathe. Yeah. So if we treat the air like a global garbage can, eventually you're gonna start dying off, right? So you gotta think about these things. It's not like you need to hit the panic button. It's just no, because then you're gonna make some real bad choices. But it's good to get the ball rolling on these kinds of things and understand. Well, yeah, even that guy in Las Vegas just outside that landfill, he knows we're not putting garbage here 25 years later, right? And then all of Las Vegas that would be producing, a lot of garbage, where does it go? Yeah. So it's good to think about these things in advance before they happen, because when you try and tackle these problems when they're already too big of a problem, it's a lot more than a crisis. Yeah, it's a lot more than a crisis, and it causes chaos. Everybody then is panicking, and yeah, that's very, very undesirable. So when you start, understanding how to work towards the mitigation of these kinds of things, and you start, planning in advance for these kinds of things to happen, you don't have to worry because you can just do all the calculations, right? Like I said, okay, we got 1,000,000 tons of garbage globally. Again, it's just a number. We produce 1,000. When we're doing these things and we're taking away 4,000 every day, okay, yeah, that 1,000,000 tons of garbage won't be there one day. But the better part is we're still producing garbage, and we've got, not a surplus of garbage that we're producing. We're slowly taking it down so that we can keep making it, as opposed to a day where we would be making it and having no idea what to do with it. Yeah.